All right. Hello to our Moonshot House champions. I'm Cindy I. I'm the community manager at Moonshot House. Welcome to the second episode of our new mini-series where we're exploring how Gen Z are reinterpreting the venture capital and private equity space. Today's episode is centered around the theme of non-traditional asset classes, and I'm delighted to be with Max Xiao, co-founder of The Hype Advisor, the world's first ever hedge fund operating in the streetwear resale market. Max, welcome to the Moonshot House studio.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right, to get things started, could you give our audience members some background about yourself?
Yeah, for sure. So, hey guys, my name is Max. I am a junior at UC Berkeley studying economics and data science. I was born and raised in Cupertino, California, and I think that's definitely what sprouted my interest in entrepreneurship and startup culture as a whole. And the prominence of this culture at Berkeley, in particular, whether it be the entrepreneurship classes the school has to offer or the incubators on campus, definitely only motivated me to start my own business even further. I would say, throughout my college experience, I've definitely spent a ton of time trying to expose myself to as many industries as possible. So this semester, I served at the VP of Development in Valley Consulting Group, which is an on-campus student-run consulting club. And through that club, I've consulted for a variety of different startups, including Halo, Tempo, and Outfront Solutions. And by consulting for these startups, I got to firsthand witness the impact that these startups can have on other people. And I would say this definitely made me even more interested in startup culture and made me want to become a part of it. So all in all, I would say my interest in the startup culture, entrepreneurship, and investing through the Hype Advisor has definitely led me to the VC industry, which is what I hope to pursue in the long run.
All right, that's absolutely awesome. Could you maybe walk us through your journey in establishing the Hype Advisor, what your inspirations were, and all of that?
Yeah, no, for sure. So I definitely have a pretty interesting story about how the Hype Advisor started. So when I first joined VCG, I was tasked with starting creating a capstone project, which is basically a project that all the new consultants are required to do. And we have complete freedom in what we can do with this project. I kind of saw this as an opportunity to take what I've learned in the classroom setting, take the skills I've learned and apply it to a real world setting and pursue a project that I can do for the rest of my college career. At the time I was super interested in streetwear. And I knew I wanted to do something with streetwear investing, but I wasn't sure how I would bring this to other people. It was a very niche idea at the time. So I remember I asked my capstone advisor to meet me at Cafe Milano, which is right next to UC Berkeley, and talk about, my ideas and everything that was on my mind. So when we had that conversation, I was talking with him about the idea and I let him know everything that was on my mind. And he mentioned one phrase that stuck with me for the rest of the Hype Advisor. And he said, "Why don't you just create a hedge fund for shoes?" And my mind was absolutely blown. I was like, wow, that's an insane idea. So I remember running back to my dorm that one night and fleshing out the idea a little bit more, thinking about it and reaching out to two of my closest buddies at the time in college who would ultimately embark with me on this venture to start the Hype Advisor. And yeah, ever since then, that was our co-founding team. And I've been working on the Hype Advisor ever since.
Wow, that's amazing. So how did you come up with the name for your company? I mean, Hype Advisor seems like a pretty unique name.
Yeah, so the first thing is I knew I wanted to include the word hype in my name because, I knew that I was not only going to be selling the viability of my service, but also selling, the culture as a whole. And hype is a very good, I guess, like way of encapsulating this culture because hype represents exclusivity and the resulting demand for the sneakers that I invest in. I would say the advisor portion kind of relates more to my company's value proposition, which is where my team's combined reselling experience of 20 plus years, has allowed us to develop an eye for the market. So, we are trying to democratize access to investment in this market and providing advice for people who maybe don't have this prior experience. And, we recognize through our years of reselling that there's a huge learning curve associated with it. So we wanted to basically allow anybody, regardless of their financial background, to be able to invest in this market.
Yeah. I mean, so usually when you think of investments, right, you think of investing in stocks, real estate. You also mentioned how a big part of like the Hype Advisor is buying into that culture, right? So what is it that makes sneakers in particular like such an interesting asset class?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So I would say the first thing is like that, not a lot of people have heard about like sneakers and investing even in the same sentence, right? It's like a very, I guess, like hard to grasp concept for a lot of people where it's kind of like we're investing in the shoes that people wear on a daily basis, right? That's like the first really interesting thing about shoes. I would say the second thing is how resilient sneakers are to, or actually I would say like there's not a high correlation of sneakers with like the public market. And I actually want to show my website for this specific part on some research we've done into this. So this session right here, resilient to recession. So as you all know, like, COVID hit and the stock market was heavily hit, but I was really curious in determining like what happened to the sneaker market. So basically what I did is I compiled a sneaker index, or I guess you can call it like an S&P 500 but for shoes. And it's basically a list of 20 shoes that, at the time were the most popular on the aftermarket. And what I found was super astonishing, where, the stock market plummeted 30% within the first month of COVID being announced as, a pandemic and the national lockdown being announced. But what I saw was the sneaker market only went down 7.15%, which is, a huge difference from the stock market. So this was one indicator to me that sneakers can be a viable investment, like they don't have a huge correlation with the public market, and they can act as a system of diversification for, a modern day portfolio, an investor portfolio, right? And I would say the other thing that's really interesting about sneakers is that there's a limited supply of them on the market. So if you think about it, if we invest in shoes that have a consistent demand, or even demand that goes up over time, the resale price is bound to go up just by the simple law of supply and demand in economics, right? So I would say there's not really a ceiling in terms of resale price that a sneaker can hit, which is really, really interesting about shoes as well.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's really interesting how you did research and show that the difference between like the stock market and the sneaker market was like so huge, right? So depending on like how COVID goes, whether the vaccine goes through, whether life goes back to normal, what is sort of your market outlook for 2021?
Yeah, so I would say, every single year, my market outlook, obviously I'm gonna be very biased, but it's very, very bright looking for shoes. So the first thing is, I read a Business Insider article and it said that the sneaker market is projected to grow from, I believe, 2 billion in 2018 to 6 billion in 2025. So I do expect the sneaker market to continue on this kind of exponential growth trend. Another thing about shoes is I hope to see sneakers as, a more widely accepted form of alternative assets. As you mentioned, Cindy, right now everyone's looking at stocks, real estate, and bonds, and especially stocks more than ever because of the pandemic. But Cohen, which is an investment firm, actually released, 2 reports detailing, the viability of sneakers as an investment and their positive outlook on the market as well. And given the fact that there's a low correlation with public markets, I think sneakers can act as a tool to diversify, current investors' portfolios.
I think that's definitely really interesting. And with COVID, you guys are sort of doing all of this at a really perfect time, right? So what are the actual practical steps that the Hypervisor is taking to democratize this access to these sort of previously exclusive products?
Yeah, for sure. So before I jump into the actual services we offer and how we democratize access, I wanted to highlight, our core value of transparency within our service. So, and I think this definitely ties into the fact that we're trying to democratize access to this market, right? So we are super, super transparent with our operational activities in terms of what investments we buy and sell for our investors. And, we educate them in terms of like the reasoning behind all of our investments. And I think that's a huge part in, helping them overcome this initial learning curve when it comes to investing in shoes. So investors can log onto their portals and check the reasoning we have behind each of their investments, and they can see exactly how many pairs we buy, on what date we purchase, the purchase price of these shoes, et cetera, et cetera. And I think that's a huge part in, I guess, like our company culture as a whole. So now jumping into the service itself, and I'm gonna share my screen again to show you our website under services. So our biggest service is definitely the Hype Fund. That's what Cindy mentioned earlier with, I guess you can call it streetwear's first hedge fund. So our initial, I guess, like thought process was we wanted to provide this investment opportunity to anybody, right, regardless of their financial background. And we acknowledge that, a lot of our clients would be college students who probably don't have, thousands and thousands of dollars to invest in any sort of market. So we wanted to keep, number one, the minimum investment amount of just $100, which we see as kind of like the lowest barrier of entry. We kind of lowering the barrier of entry needed in order to enter this market. So I guess the general process of the Hive Fund is we pull together money from our clients, invest it in assets that we predict to be bullish, and after an investing time frame, which usually ranges from 6 to 9 months, we sell the items, collect a small fee on top, and wire the earnings directly to our investors' bank account. So it's just as simple as that. Honestly, it doesn't get any simpler than that. And like I mentioned earlier, our process is super transparent. They can log onto their portals at any given time and check the investments that we've made, their current market value, and the reasoning behind each investment. I would say the second service that we do to democratize access to investment is the Hype Weekly, which is our weekly newsletter service. So every single week we send out to our clients or anybody subscribed to our newsletter, basically our personal watch list of shoes that we think are great investments. We talk about, the release date, what we see as the real market value, and also the reasoning behind each of these investments. And, consolidating all the information that people see on social media about shoes, which is where kind of like everybody gets their information about shoes nowadays, and putting it onto like a very streamlined one-stop shop where people can kind of see everything they need to know about upcoming releases is what we kind of envisioned for this service as well. So these are, I guess, the two current services we have at the moment that we are using to democratize access to this market.
Yeah, wow. You guys are certainly doing a lot. With all the steps that you're taking, do you think one day all of these luxury products will be highly liquid and easily tradable, much like how you guys are trying to make for sneakers?
Yeah, no, that's honestly a really great question, because I would say the biggest pain point that I've seen, so I've interviewed so many people in the industry, and they've all kind of mentioned me the same thing, where sneakers are an illiquid asset. And I think like that's honestly the biggest barrier of entry for people who want to get into investing. Investing in sneakers is a 4-step process. It's obviously sourcing the shoes, and then I got to basically find somebody who's able to sell to me these specific sneakers in a specific size at a price I'm willing to pay, holding onto these sneakers and managing inventory. And at the end of the time frame, I'm selling the sneakers off to somebody who's willing to buy it on the other end, right? So as you can see, it's like a multi-step process, right? And sneakers being a liquid definitely makes this whole process a lot harder. But at the moment, there's not a lot of services out there who's kind of aiming to make sneakers more liquid. But it's really interesting to ask this question, because the Hype Advisor we're in the process of pivoting our current business model from the Hype Fund towards an exchange platform, where basically investors can invest in shoes at the click of a button. Although I can't disclose too much information about the service itself, since we're kind of still in the development phase of fleshing out our business model and things of that nature, what I can say is this service will accomplish 2 things. Number one, it's going to completely change how people invest in shoes. That 4-step process will only become a 1-step process. The only thing that people need to do now is to just determine what's the right shoe to invest in, and that shoe will be right at the click of a button. I would say the second thing is to open sneaker investing to everybody. Once again, I think not a lot of people are investing in shoes nowadays because it's a huge multi-step process. But removing those barriers of entry will definitely open this opportunity to anybody who wants to get involved.
Oh, definitely. I mean, you mentioned a bit about how there aren't a lot of other companies out there that are doing something similar, right? But have you seen any other companies that are sort of developing these secondary markets are similar to your own?
Yeah, no, I definitely have. So I would say, 2 companies that are doing something very similar are Rally and Otis, and they do very similar things. Basically, what they do is they, list out not only sneakers on their platform, but also just like anything that's investable in any physical asset. So it can be like cars, playing cards, art pieces, things of that nature. And investors can actually buy equity shares in these different like listings on their platform. Mm-hmm. It's very much like the stock market, right? It's really, really similar. But I guess like what we're trying to do with our platform and how we're planning to differentiate ourselves from this is, instead of investing in equity shares, people are able to purchase they're able to own 100% of a certain sneaker. And the sneakers that we're offering on our platform are not like collectible items, but just like everyday shoes you see people wearing that go up in value over time because of how much demand they have on the aftermarket. So yeah, these are 2 really interesting companies that I'm definitely looking into as well. But yeah, I definitely have plans to differentiate myself from these companies.
Yeah, wow. I mean, it's such an interesting sort of niche within the market as well that you and these other companies are sort of working in. So beyond just sneakers, right? Do you ever plan to expand like beyond that? Do you want to go into sort of other sorts of markets? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, definitely. So I would say sneakers is our first step, right? Like, sneakers is something that I've always grown up around. My team has grown up around, and that's what we've kind of developed our eye for the market for, right? But we also want to kind of open up this investment platform to not only shoes, but just culture in general, right? Like culture that millennials are drawn towards. So once again, kind of like maybe anything that has investment potential and anything that has aftermarket demand is things that we see including on our platform. So for example, StockX is a platform that offers items like this. So in addition to just sneakers, they offer like clothing pieces, they offer handbags, they offer watches, which all have investment potential. And these are things that we want to include on our platform. So I would say kind of just like anything that people can invest in and people are willing to invest in and people see as potential, we plan to include on our platform. Just, I guess, luxury goods as a whole.
Yeah, wow. That's super interesting, I think. So, how would one get involved if they want to, let's say, join the Hypervisor team or invest in your company?
Yeah, for sure. So at the moment, we're currently not recruiting for new team members just because we're heads down working on our new business model and fleshing out our website, revamping our website a little bit, just kind of mirror everything I just mentioned in this interview. But if people want to reach out, we're always happy to have conversations and get conversations going, so they can reach out at team@thehypervisor.com. In terms of investing in the Hypervisor, we're currently undergoing our second batch of the Hype Fund. But we plan to not, so we're not currently accepting new investors. And at the moment, we're not planning to continue with the Hype Fund, unfortunately, because we do want to kind of focus fully on this new exchange platform. But if we do ever, people can follow us on our social media platforms on Instagram and LinkedIn, and we will for sure announce, and also subscribe to our newsletter, and we will for sure announce if any investing rounds open up in the future.
Yeah, no, definitely. So what do you see in the future for the hypervisor and specifically your involvement with it?
Yeah, so I would say like we definitely have a very, I guess, like rigorous timeline planned out for the exchange platform. So we definitely want to flesh out the business model by the end of this year and get the beta version up and running by next April. So that's our plan. After that, we definitely want to source VC funding because VCs will definitely play a huge role in the success, or angel investors play a huge role in the success of this idea. And yeah, after that, I just want to see where this goes. Hopefully, the Hypervisor becomes something that I can pursue long term. I would love to continue working on this project post-graduate, after graduating from college, and my team does as well. But yeah, I guess we will see where this goes. And I personally have a ton of confidence in our new idea, and I think this will completely change the industry as we know of it today and allow anybody to invest in sneakers. So yeah, have definitely a lot of hope for the future of the Hypervisor.
Oh yeah, it was absolutely amazing to hear about your journey, what the Hypervisor does, and sort of where you guys are going in the future. So thank you so much for taking the time today, Max, to sort of walk us through everything and to share with us this really amazing company that is sort of unlike any other company out there. But yeah,
Thank you.
no, again, thank you so much for your time today.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you so much for having me, Cindy.